Hi, I'm Dr. Nina Savell Rocklin. I'm a psychoanalyst specializing in binge eating disorder. And in this video, I'm going to talk about binge eating disorder relapse. Be sure to watch until the very end because you're going to learn the reasons for relapse. They may be more than you think. And you'll also be able to tell whether it's relapse or self-sabotage. I'm also going to tell you how to prevent relapse so you won't have to worry about control or willpower or all the things, and you can feel confident and at ease in your body and your mind without thinking about calories, carbs, or fat grams. So first, what is binge eating disorder? Binge eating disorder is a type of eating disorder, the most prevalent eating disorder there is, and it is characterized by episodes of overeating or binging. And binging is eating a large amount of food in a short period of time, often to the point of feeling uncomfortably full. And people with binge eating disorder often feel like they can't control their eating. They may eat when they're not hungry. It feels terrible to binge eat. Often people eat things they don't even like, and afterwards they feel such shame, such guilt, and such embarrassment. The signs and symptoms of binge eating disorder can vary from person to person, of course, but let's put it this way. Eating 4 cookies is not a binge. No, it is not. Eating 40 cookies, that's a binge. So here are some common signs and symptoms that people with binge eating disorder often experience. Again, eating large amounts of food in a short period of time, eating even when you're not hungry or you don't even want to eat any more food, but you feel like you can't stop, eating until you're uncomfortably full or feel sick to your stomach, and frequently eating alone or in secret and feeling guilty, ashamed, or embarrassed after eating. Also experiencing feelings of low self-esteem or worthlessness, and thinking about food all the time, as well as missing social events or work due to binging. Binge eating disorder is the most common type of eating disorder in the United States, and it affects people of all genders, all ages, all ethnicities. So it's not like a gal's thing. It's not for women. It's for anybody. If you're human, you could have binge eating disorder. And lots of people who struggle with binge eating disorder don't know they have a diagnosable and treatable eating disorder. They often think they lack willpower, they lack control, or they think that they are addicted to food. Nope. The truth is, binge eating disorder is a negative coping strategy. It's a way of coping, just a bad way of coping. And it involves eating as a way of dealing with the difficulties of life. The key to stop binging is to identify why you're using food to cope, develop new ways of expressing your feelings, and cultivate helpful self-soothing strategies. It is a process, yes, and it is possible. Now, while it's normal to have setbacks during treatment, relapse can feel like a major defeat. It's important to know relapse is normal. It's temporary, and it can even be an opportunity to learn more about yourself and prevent future relapses. Okay, so when it comes to binge eating disorder, what's relapse? Well, relapse is a return to previous behaviors after a period of abstinence or improvement. This can mean binging again. It can mean starting to focus more on food, avoiding social situations where there's food, and of course, using food to cope with anxiety, depression, loneliness, and stress. Also, dissatisfaction with weight or body image is a sign of relapse. If your weight and body image is tied to your self-worth or serves to distract you from other issues in your life, that's a warning sign. Again, relapses aren't just about behavior. They're also about the way we think about ourselves. And it's important to remember that relapse is not a sign of failure. In fact, like I said before, it's normal. It's very common. In fact, it happens to everybody. Just like with any other change, there are always going to be ups and downs. Times when you feel great, you have a handle on coping, and times when you don't. The key is to have a plan in place for when those tough times come around again. One of the best ways to prevent relapse is to identify your triggers, the things that make you want to slip back into the unhealthy coping strategy of binge eating. Once you know what your triggers are, you can develop a plan for how to deal with them. Okay, so here are some common triggers, some common reasons for relapse. Stress. One of the most common triggers for relapse is stress. That could be anything from a relationship breakup or job loss to moving to a new city, starting a new job. Stress doesn't have to be something negative. Sometimes it's positive. It can be a loss, It could be dealing with financial difficulties, managing anxiety during a pandemic, for example. Any type of change or upheaval in your life can be difficult to cope with and can increase your risks for relapse. Even things that are good are stressful. Getting married, having a baby, those are stressful. Loneliness and isolation is a trigger. Binge eating can start as a way to cope with loneliness. When we feel deeply alone, it feels like an internal emptiness that can be symbolically filled with food. So if you're feeling isolated and alone, even in a group of people, especially in a group of people, it's important to cultivate more of an attitude of solitude. So loneliness is sadness over being alone. Solitude is the state of being more comfortably alone. And when you are alone with a part of yourself that can provide comfort, understanding, and encouragement, you can feel a peaceful sense of solitude. Being around triggers. Maybe you have certain people or situations in your life that trigger you emotionally. For example, having to listen to friends or family members who are always dieting, or even worse, talking about dieting or their own body image issues. That can be a trigger. So it's important to remember the trigger is not food. Perfectionism is a trigger. Many people with eating disorders have perfectionistic tendencies, and that means they expect themselves to be perfect in everything they do. They don't allow themselves to miss a beat. The truth is, change is not linear. Everyone has moments of backsliding, but those are also opportunities for learning. So think about what we say to babies who are taking their first uncertain steps. If you've ever seen a baby take their first steps, they take a few steps, maybe not even a few, and then they fall before getting up and trying again. But when a baby falls, we don't say, oh, that baby's never going to walk. That baby's a failure. Pfft, that baby fell. We say, hey, you got this, baby. Try again. We need to be equally as encouraging to ourselves. Now, is it relapse or self-sabotage? Sometimes we go back to old patterns because some part of us is afraid of change. Consciously, we want to stop binging. Consciously, we want to feel good. But there are often parts of our mind hidden in our unconscious that put the brakes on positive change. Self-sabotage happens for many reasons. Some people are afraid that if they achieve their goals, they won't be able to maintain their success, or they may be afraid that friends will be jealous. Others fear success because on some level they don't think they deserve anything good. Or they may be afraid that if they heal from binge eating, things will be too good to be true and some disaster will befall them, or the proverbial other shoe will drop. So relapse means returning to old coping strategies such as binging or being preoccupied with food and weight, but it happens as a result of an external trigger, some situation that causes us to feel too much and we can't cope, or some helplessness or some kind of situational emotion that comes up that causes us to go back to food. Self-sabotage results from an internal trigger. It occurs when things are going well, when it causes some inner conflict about success and well-being. So preventing relapse. While there's no guarantee that you'll never relapse, there are some things you can do to reduce your risk of relapse. So here are some tips for prevention. Again, identify your triggers. One of the best things you can do to prevent relapse is to identify your triggers and develop a plan for how you'll deal with them when they come up. If you know you tend to turn to unhealthy behaviors when you're stressed, practice nurturing and giving yourself new coping strategies so that those will take the place of binging. And I'm not talking about taking a shower or a walk or something like that. I'm talking about the way you talk to yourself, like turning your inner critic into a friend. When we're kind to ourselves, when we encourage and support ourselves, we can handle almost anything. And the nicer you are to yourself, the better you feel, which eliminates the need to binge. Also, process and work through your feelings. The way to feel your emotions is not to just sit in them. The way to feel your emotions is to first identify what you are experiencing, what you're experiencing. And most emotions can be distilled into one of these four: mad, sad, glad, or afraid. Then express those emotions with words, either by journaling, talking to a friend, a partner, therapist, a support buddy. And last, respond to yourself by being your own best friend. Also have a solid support system in place. These are the people you can rely on when things get tough. The ones who will help talk you through your triggering situation and help you find a healthy way to cope. Again, It could be a therapist, partner, friend, support group, someone who's truly there for you and will listen to you and help you. As anyone who's trying to overcome binge eating probably knows, relapse is a major concern. And unfortunately, it's also a reality for many, many, many people. Estimates suggest that the relapse rate for eating disorders are similar to those for chronic illnesses like depression and anxiety. That's around 40 to 50%. But good news, there are things you can do to prevent a relapse from happening by being aware of your triggers, finding new ways to deal with stress, challenging perfectionism, and being kind to yourself. By doing those things, you can break free from binging for good.